not always the case that we get frost in the morning, so I think we should try and take advantage of it. When we say that the shadows are predominantly cool outside, this is a great illustration, because you can all see very obviously how blue the shadows are in the frost. One of the interesting things is just before the frost melts, how light in value it is. And the confusing part is that it becomes so light in value, it becomes even a touch lighter than the sunlight. And that's very difficult to pull off, because when you bring it home, you're going to say, how did I get that so chalky? And then when how light in value it is before it melts, and you look at the cast shadows. If you squint your eyes, look at the cast shadow on the part that's melted, and then compare it to the cast shadow that hasn't melted, you can really see the difference. So I was going to do straight ahead. I think it would be a good illustration of some distance, but boy, I really like that over there. If I do that there, it's going to take longer. I'm going to do this over here. Yeah. I'll start just as if we were not as experienced as we all are. The first thing you do is find the direction of the sunlight, which way it's coming, and you try and prove that at all times in your painting. We were mentioning before that the shadow is quite blue. If we start out with that principle, and for the time being, just make the shadows with our atmospheric gray that we look through, and the influence of the blue sky, and if we stick with that in the beginning, even though there's local color, So squinting down tight your eyes enables us to see the light and shadow pattern, and we endeavor to try and get that immediately. If the important part of the painting was in the sky, then we would absolutely go after the sky first. But every situation's a little bit different, and our center of interest is a little different with each painting. So in this case, it's, I think, obviously the landscape that's more important than the sky. One of the interesting things about painting outside is that even on a crystal clear day, the shadows get slightly lighter in the distance. If we look at the sycamore tree and we look at the shadow value of the trunk and the shadow value of the bushes, and then we look past the fields and get into the shadows on those trees back there, you can see that it's a step lighter. And you can also notice that you lose local color faster in the shadow than you do the sunlight. So that you can see some of the browns on the tree trunk and the dark olivey greens in the sycamore tree. However, when you shoot across those fields, you lose that color and it becomes more atmospheric blue and gray. However, the sunlight retains its color more. You can certainly see the local color of the trees in the distance, and then when you look at the mountain in the back, even more so. So, and you can even see some of the shadows on the mountain. They're even lighter than the shadows on the trees on the field. So it goes back getting lighter and lighter and lighter. Right, now the other interesting thing is that the sunlight really doesn't get that much lighter as it goes off into the distance. So, if we were to look at these apple trees that are in the sunlight, and with their eyes squinted down, compare the tops of those sunlit apple trees to that cedar tree directly behind it, and then look at the sunlight of that cedar tree and compare it to the value of sunlight on the back trees behind the field. You can see that those edges all get lost together, which means that the values stay pretty much the same going all the way back. Now if you look at that mountain and you look at the trees in front, which is right here on the pond, you can see that the sunlight on the mountain and the sunlight on the trees are pretty close. So, just for a second, to illustrate that point, if we were to take the Earth, and here we are right on the top, and then the atmosphere going around the Earth, and the sun up here where there's no atmosphere, coming through and hitting the atmosphere on the edge. And because we're here, and if we were to look straight up, and then we're going to look straight out, the distance obviously is more here than it is here. So, looking up straight, we can see how dark the sky is. and how full of ultramarine it is. The most violet part of the sky is at the zenith, straight ahead, overhead. And that ultramarine has the most red in it. So, with that progression coming down all the way to the horizon, if we could see the horizon, not only does the value of the blue get lighter, lighter, it progresses away from the violet towards the yellow-green part of the sky. So on our palette, certainly ultramarine is out of our scope, and our vision is more into the cobalt blue range at the top, just for illustration purposes. And then as that sky comes down, it's losing the violet and it's gaining the yellow. And the value gets lighter. Until you start getting into the green part of the sky. So you look for a blue that has more yellow in it, such as cerulean or manganese blue, and if there's none to be had, a spot of yellow by itself mixed in with the blue, and you start getting into the greener, yellower portion of the sky, getting lighter. Now if we were here an hour and a half earlier, there would still be a little bit of orange towards the bottom. So now we have that progression from the yellowish part of the sky to green to blue-green, heading towards the violet overhead. And then as the progression picks up, going back to the horizon, it's going back to the warmer side. So into that yellow, if we put a little bit of orange, and remember that the sky is still getting lighter as it goes back. So we're down into something like that. Now if we were here earlier, say we were at the shore, where you could see straight all the way out to the horizon and we were looking in this direction, from that orange you'd probably pick up a touch of red light. And that would go into here. And then even a touch of red medium and white as it goes closer to the horizon. Alright, so now we have that progression from the yellowest part of the sky here to orange to red towards the violet and on the horizon. However, with every day being a little different, there's always that atmosphere that we're looking through from here to here and from here to here, because there's so much more moisture that we're looking through and more haze and dust and everything else. That violet on the horizon line is filtered out and it becomes very gray and very hardly even noticeable. So, what have we got in the sky like this? And we see this as soon as we open our eyes in the morning, before we turn on the electric lights. We look out the window, or we have natural light coming in through the studio. We're seeing the prism all day long, and we see it in different stages, and there's different effects, and there's different conditions, which makes outside painting so exciting, because every day is so completely different. So on a day like today, we have in our midst the entire spectrum without any clouds, without any mugginess or fog or anything. And we see this all day long. Now if we were to stand here and wait towards the end of the day, wow, the whole sky is completely different. And we end up looking into the sun. And then we see most of the red side of the spectrum. How exciting is that? Stand here all day. It's better than the movies.
John, have you ever given a demo late in the afternoon?
Oh yeah. No difference really. It's the same speech. Just a different time of day. This painting will, the sketch will end up being a hodgepodge of stuff, but I'll try and teach. Alright, so if we quickly mass in the shadow, one of the more difficult things about fall is that there's a lot of different colors. You try and average that in as quickly as possible. The easier thing about fall versus the greenness of the summer is that you can see the separation of the trees a little easier. In the summer, in July and June, it's green in front of green in front of green in front of green, and you have to have a really controlled palette and understanding of the scale to make your sketches look convincing. And this palette is one of the greatest tools for composing and creating pictures. You just have to take the time to learn it. And that's where a lot of people fall apart, because it's not that difficult, it just takes a long time. Before you know it, the fall is over, and then winter, and then it's a different set of conditions. And then the spring comes around, and and then you're back into fall, and you forget last year what you learned the year before. It takes a long time. It's just like playing an instrument. It takes time to learn it. So if we moved into the shadow and we started with that blue and gray combination and put a little local color into it. In this case, the tulip tree there turns quite yellow and quite orange. Alright, so if you squint your eyes quickly and look at the shadow shape, one thing I wanted to do before that was to put in the shadow across the field, because that may change.
John, I can't tell from here, is that an upright plane, the shadow plane?
I made it just a touch dark, a tiny touch lighter than the shadows in the front here by the stream. It's about the same, just a hair lighter. All right, next to the tulip tree are those oaks and maples in there. Again, squint your eyes tight and you can see the shadow shapes, proving that the sun is coming from the left onto the tree. So the shadow side So the principles are the same. I noticed that someone's going to do some watercolors. It's the same light, same idea. The only thing is, you know, with watercolor you may have to start with the lighter tones first. Now this shadow here is where there is a stream over there, and that's the bank. So this shadow here is representing that dark. I know in the beginning, everybody's looking around and what the heck is this guy painting? Sometimes I don't know either, I'm all over the place. But a big brush, I would say a number 12, at least in the early massing. It eliminates all the details and so forth, and will enable you to get the large masses. Alright, now this part, for the time being, I'm going to eliminate all that ivy on that one tree there and put the average. Just finish more shadow first. Right, so from this very primitive sketch of the Earth and the sky that we look through to the edge of that atmosphere, the part that I forgot to mention is that really this whole thing acts like a raindrop. So we've all seen the rainbow at the end of the day, when the sun comes through, and it comes through all those water droplets, and that enables us to see the prism. And that, it's almost as if we're in a gigantic atmospheric with moisture in it raindrop, and that enables us to see the spectrum. And that spectrum in the sky, it's the same light and the same prism on the landscape going back. So now from here to here, or from here to there to the back field, as crystal clear as it is, the idea of yellow to orange to red towards violet in the distance prevails on the landscape just like it does in the sky. Now sometimes it's not as obvious, but if we look here we can see how yellow the grass is, or how green it really is. Alright, and as we go from here to the middle orchard, to the field in the back, to the one way in the back, not only does it gray out atmospherically, but the amount of yellow in its subtle way is getting orangier, and will actually take a little bit of red light and white and mix it into that green as it goes back into the field. And the other thing that we were saying before about the sunlight on this grass from here to there to there to there is grayer, but the value is the same. I don't know if you can all see that, but the value is still at the middle position going back. It's the shadows that are getting lighter. So eventually the shadows become so light that the shadows come up to the sunlight values. And if we had a little bit of haze in the sky, that mountain in the distance, it would just be blue-gray, and the blue-gray would be at the sunlight value. Anybody knows that. All right, now if we quickly put in some of the shadow on the frost that's left. And one of the really one of the neatest things is that look how these conditions have changed. And you know, you can still see how blue this frost is. Frost has been my nemesis since I started painting. Because you bring it in, you think you do a good job, and you're looking at it, and it looks wrong. And the values are tricky. Sometimes it looks like water, or it looks like a pond. One time I got pretty close though. Very pleased with myself for a few minutes. Coming closer now, you can see some of the local color. This isn't in the picture, but I'm going to put it in anyway. So, if that reflects some of the cobalt, the reflection here will certainly have some ultramarine in it. All right, now some of the sunlight up in the back through here and on the grass. Still more. there's a lot of sky through the tulip tree. So you have to kind of make a judgment as to when to paint the sky through it and pull the leaves on top. Like the one that's dropped all the leaves, you get more sky going through that. Just for the illustration. And then carefully put the sky holes because it can get real dirty and mushy if you're not careful. Alright, and with this one, you can pull that over. And then the halftone, wipe your brush off so that you can get the form. And this is where, no matter what we're painting and how important the figure is, or the portrait, and how important the still life painting is, because it's the same principle. You have a light average and you have a shadow average, and then once you halftone those two together, then you have form. See, and you can't bring your canvas to life without form. Alright, and after the form, we have what we call the triad. That is the first triad. Now in the end, if we were to put in some of this foreground, or even some of these trees in the apple orchard, you look for your darkest dark and your highest light. Certainly on these trees, because they're fairly close, you're going to get a couple more values on the light side. You can go up at least 3 steps after your average to the light, and then you can go down a little bit darker, so that if we go down a little deeper, it's the underplane value. And if we were to include that little piece of the bridge or some of the darks in the bank, it's the underplane. And then we have the reflected light side, especially in the greens. You don't see it quite as much in the color trees, but on the greens. So you come up a step lighter. And you get the reflected light on the shadow. The reflected light is the sky. This is all a reflected light on the shadows down below. And then what's left is the sunlight on the grass and all those leaves in the back there. So we call the average of sunlight on the flat plane the middle position of sunlight. And in a scale of 9 values, it would range around the third. So the average of sunlight, and we still have values to come up. Put it in the wrong place. It's supposed to be over there. That doesn't matter though. Oh, I always do that. And without the leaves on the grass, the sunlight still with some atmosphere in it, because if we compare the green here to the green out there,
Just show us an additional step on the tree light.
yes, in here,
The light side.
yeah. When we're talking about the average, and then we started and got the half tone, which gave us the form.
But you had said you might go up.
Absolutely, the highest light. And one of the interesting things is, you know, if we were to paint the figure, some of us might make the hands the most interesting part of the painting, and the highest light might be on the hands, in which case the light progresses from the hands up and down on the figure. With this, it's the same kind of thing. If you're looking at the grass, if that becomes your highlight with the leaves on it, or in this case, myself and we would all see it a little bit differently. However, it's the same principle. The highest light will be on the yellow tulip tree right in front of the tree trunk. Because when you look at that and you compare it to the grass, even though this looks really bright when you're looking out, that beats it by a little bit. So you can see that even though this looked very bright here, you can come up lighter. Usually when the light is coming from the side, the lightest parts of the trees are towards the center, where the tree comes out, and it gives you a little bit more volume. If we look into the sun, if we're looking this way, or even this way, it looks as if there's more, we call it rim lighting. So right behind the little shop there, which is a very attractive picture at the moment now, you see all those lights on that green bush. When you squint your eyes tight, it could be some of the highest lights there, or it could be on the glare on the grasses while they're still wet. But remember, there's one highest light. That's why they call it the highlight. So it takes a little doing and a little experience to orchestrate those lights throughout the painting. For the sketch and for the study, it's really our job to learn what's out here, not necessarily to compose and make paintings. That we do in the studio from all our lessons. So if you've got different areas where you're learning and you're studying, that's why the outdoor sketches become more important than the finished paintings in the studio, because you always have these. And you have them for years and years to look back on. And they become the finished paintings, or pieces of the finished paintings. I think we should all paint now.
Okay.
Okay.